Not all NES cartridges are the same. Let's take a look at some of these differences. Welcome to the Retro Kid, where we review, repair, and talk about retro tech. Today we're going to talk about the different types of Nintendo NES cartridges. In 1985, Nintendo released the Nintendo Entertainment System for the North American market. Along with this new generation of systems, Nintendo also released a new style of game pack, or cartridge. This new game pack went through a few different iterations. Let's take a look inside each of these cartridges, but first, we should probably clear off this mat. That's better. Now, let's take apart some games. First, let's disassemble this post-1987 NES cartridge. To do this, I'm going to be using my iFixit toolkit. It comes with a very diverse screw kit that includes game bit and other important screws that you would need if you're repairing anything that's old. Anyways, getting back to the cartridge, we see that since it is pre-1987, it has no clips on top and it has 5 screws on the back. Now that we have it apart, we can see that most of the cartridge is actually empty, and the only part that's being occupied is this bottom half. You can see the 72-pin connector on the motherboard, along with these chips that have the game information and all that stuff that you need to play the game. Now, let's look at another pre-1987 NES cartridge that is considered by many retro game enthusiasts to be a real-life Easter egg. As you can see, it's pretty similar to the last cartridge because it has, again, no clips on top and 5 screws. But once you get inside, you can see the major difference. Okay. Taking off the back, it reveals that there's actually 2 boards in here. Now that we're inside of the Famicom adapter cartridge, you can see that there's a 72-pin connector along with a Famicom board and an adapter. This is because one holiday season, Nintendo was short of NES games, and they got motherboards from the Famicom games and put them into NES games. The Famicom games, however, were only 60-pin because the Famicom did not include a lockout chip and other features. So they made an adapter to a 72-pin connector so that it can be played on the NES. You can see it's mostly the same as the NES board, other than the fact that it has 60 pins here and it goes to 72. Now that we've seen the pre-1987 cartridges, let's look at some later ones. Now, let's look at some cartridges that were released after the redesign in 1987, such as this Contra. As you can see, it has clips on top, and instead of having 5 screws on the back, it has 3. Nintendo introduced a new screw bit called the Game Bit as a proprietary screw that they used in a lot of their devices, including the NES itself. The iFixit toolkit I have has it. Here's the Game Bit. Anyways, let's get into these games. These games are significantly easier to take apart if you have the right bit because it's only 3 screws. Also, taking apart these games, you have to slide it out. You can't just lift it out because there's clips on top. Looking inside, we have a slightly taller motherboard with a little bump on it compared to the shorter one in the earlier generation. I'm not sure if this is just this game or not, but yeah. Here's the later version. You can see inside, again, it doesn't take up a lot of the cartridge. So yeah. Now that we know what the inside of a standard post-1987 cartridge looks like, let's look at one that has a save battery inside, such as this Zelda right here. So, the cartridges that have save batteries were either silver or gold, and they let you save your game and progress so that you wouldn't lose your progress or any of that. So you could unplug it and then plug it back in and you would still be playing the same game with all the same stuff. Anyways, let's disassemble it. You can see even the warnings on the back say how to save it if you want to save your game. Oh. The Zelda cartridge actually doesn't have game bit. Instead, it has flathead. I didn't even know that. So let's go back to flathead. Now that we have all the screws off, let's lift off the cover. As you can see, since this motherboard has a save battery, it is significantly taller. The inside of this cartridge is also black instead of gray because the outside is gold. Pulling out the motherboard, it is a tight fit, but you can see the save battery right here. This one's been replaced before, so on these older games, you would usually have to replace the save battery. My local gaming store replaces them for $10. So here is the motherboard with the save battery. Now let's look at all of the different NES motherboards together. Now we can see the 4 different types of NES motherboards. Here we have baseball. This one is a very simple game, so it has not as many chips as the other ones. Here is Contra. Contra was a little bit more of a complicated game, so it's bigger and it has more chips. Here we have Zelda. As you can see, it has the save battery and more chips because, again, it was a more complicated game. Here we have the 60 to 72 pin adapter that had the Famicom game to the NES system. This game is Hogan's Alley. These are all the types of motherboards for the NES. So let's say you wanted one of these Famicom to NES adapter cartridges. Here's how you can find one. First, what you want to look for is a cartridge with 5 screws on the back and no clips. And then, if you look closely at the right angle into where the connectors are on the cartridge, you can see that on this one, which is not the adapter cartridge, it has the little bumps in the middle of where the connection points are. But on the adapter cartridge, you can see how the bumps are offset. Now only check these if you know that the cartridge has 5 screws, because there are other games that also have the offset pins, but they only have 3 screws, and that will not be an adapter cartridge. Adapter cartridges only come in 5-screw cartridges. Overall, it's amazing to see how these little differences made huge changes to the world of gaming. Anyways, thanks for watching. For the Retro Kid, I'm the Retro Kid.